this is the spot, but where is everybody? I guess I'm the first one.
On your mark, get set, go!
Slow-mo run shot. Hi!
Oh my God, it really is great to see you in person.
Good to see you. Wait, look who's behind you. Don't look now. It's Roker!
Yes!
Hold on. Hold
is
on.
it?
They look familiar.
Hold on.
Wait, who could it
They
be?
look familiar.
Oh. So there's you.
So come over to me, except for we're not allowed to. No, they said no. They said there would be no hugging.
No hugging. No.
Look at you and Roker, too.
That's it.
You know what? I didn't realize how much I missed you guys.
Getting a little misty.
Uh-huh.
Ladies and gentlemen, straight from L.A.
Look at that
Carson.
Guys, we're all here.
I have to say, there is a weird intimacy with what we do in the studio, like with each other, but there's nothing that beats like this moment where we're standing here.
Well, should we eat and drink?
Let's do it.
I've
Yes.
been doing it for 3 months.
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
This is nice, too.
You know, everyone always asks us, is it hard to get up in the morning and that early? And I always say no. And the reason it's not hard is because we're all there together. And I think that's been the hardest part, is that we really love all those early hours before 7 when we get to hang out. And I definitely miss that.
I think that, I always think about the time in the makeup room, which is literally more therapy than anything.
I miss makeup and hair too, just saying.
That too.
So do I.
But I have to say, it's like you don't realize how much you rely on, lean on, count on, unload before your day starts. Then you don't realize you're lugging it around all day, because that's part of it. I feel like what I miss the most is sitting in the makeup room and unpacking stuff, life lessons that we usually do in the morning time.
I miss the time between stories and commercial breaks when we sit around and talk about complete and utter nonsense. Well, now Roker cracks a joke from 40 years ago, and he's the only one that gets the reference.
But that's luckily, I missed the crew because I can't count on your response. But I can count on the crew.
That's true.
They're part of our family, and being and let me say, not complaining, but having to set up a studio every morning in your garage. Because I'd like to leave it up, but Deborah keeps saying, no, we got to park the car. So,
You need a Feldy. You need my husband.
I miss seeing you guys. The truth is, I don't even really like being on TV that much. I just want to be hanging out with you, and the show and the environment and the crew. I learned that we lost Big Dave, on the air when I was at home, and I was walking by my TV and I heard somebody say it, and it took my breath away to not. This is a guy I spoke to every single morning about Harley Davidsons and Corvettes on Long Island, and we lost him, and not being there to sort of
grieve.
Yeah, to be around that was sad. But I'm looking forward to just getting back.
You know what else?
That's everything, is being together.
Telling Hoda this morning, the food segments.
Yeah.
The cooking segments.
Grits.
You had me at
Come
grits.
on.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful.
And it looks like a Christmas wreath.
When it comes out, isn't it so good?
Sorry for speaking with my mouth.
I have to say the other thing too is, when we sat at our desk, remember the desk, and we turn around and you see everybody outside.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, one of the weirdest things in the world is sitting in our seats, turning around and seeing nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. And occasionally a nurse would walk by with a sign, or occasionally there'd be somebody out back. But you forget, that makes the show. That makes it. People just having a moment. And literally, if one person walks by with a sign, I'm like, oh my God, wait. I was like, wait, we're coming to you, because you feel like that energy, that juice we're missing.
I don't think we'll ever take it for granted again.
Yes.
Just togetherness.
Yes. Yep.
Just each other, and also our producers and our crew.
Yes.
I mean, the times we've been in the studio and you say, hey, it's Jimmy on camera. We're like, Jimmy! It's our long-lost uncle, where before, it's like the same folks every day. You're like, hi, guys. Everybody.
Yes.
Now it's like we recognize what's so precious. And what's precious is people.
Which is, I think, what we've realized now with our families and our friends, that you're people that you haven't been able to see, you haven't been able to talk to. I mean, you find yourself getting emotional. Craig came over to my backyard a couple of weeks ago, and I was, it's like, feeling this emotion, seeing Craig, which makes you realize how much you miss people when I'm getting emotional with him.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously.
I think we've all had a breakdown here or there, sometimes on camera, sometimes not, but I think we all know we're the lucky ones, but there's so much grief on so many levels, and it's so heavy, and we do want to be together, and it's hard to carry that alone.
I also don't think people who watch us in the morning have any real sense of this. I get that a lot. I'm sure you guys do. Like, you guys really kind of seem like you like each other, and in my mind, my first thing is like, oh, you actually have no idea. Like, we actually genuinely do. And I have neighbors and friends over the past 3 months that have loved not having to go to work. And I, in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, that was fun for like maybe the first couple of weeks, but like, I miss this is really a family. I mean, we are sort of the closest people in each other's lives and our families as well. And I don't think the average person really thinks that or knows that.
I mean, the idea of coming into the city, because it's a strange place now,
What is it like?
It's weird. Everybody's masked up. It's just empty, and it doesn't feel like our New York, the New York we're used to.
You grow accustomed to seeing like 4 people in the morning. Like, I'll hear a producer in my ear, or I'll see whoever's behind the one camera that we're using, and it's so jarring when you don't see like any other people, and then all of a sudden someone will pop in. You're like, oh my God, Christine!
Well, I remember when you guys first started, and it was just, I think, the two of you. Maybe it was just you, and you posted a video of you kind of in this new normal, walking in the studio, and I had no idea how we were doing it. And I remember, like, you were doing your own makeup.
Let's go get some makeup.
You mic'd yourself. Like, you were a one-woman show in 1A. And I remember watching it going, oh my gosh, like, that's actually happening.
Got an empty studio.
Besides the pandemic, and then we had, George Floyd, and we had all this happen, and that social unrest, came to Rockefeller Center. I remember that morning watching the show, from in my garage and that shot of our window boarded up. It just was so jarring. Besides everything else that was going on, it really brought it on.
I think Craig covering the story of our lifetime, which is this reckoning that this country has gone through, and the way he has done it with such empathy and humanity and professionalism and integrity. He makes it look easy, but it isn't easy.
And some of the text messages that I've gotten from you during all of this have mattered more in the moment that I was in than you'll probably ever know. So thank you for that.
That's this is a nice thing.
Well, this is why we can't do this too often.
We can't.
As someone also pointed out, we're only halfway through the year. Like, there's still a presidential election.
Can't take it. Stop it.
What could go wrong?
What's been great is that it's created this conversation that we've all been able to be part of that, you maybe never thought you would. And I mean, Craig and I talking about, raising, young black men and young black children in this time, talking about it in a way both privately and publicly, I just never thought we would do.
But that's one thing I will say about our little show, as we call it. I've always liked our show. I have fallen in love with our show over the last few months because it's the only place, literally the only place on television where you can get, the latest on the pandemic, the latest on this reckoning that we find ourselves in right now. But then it's a story of inspiration. It's surprising someone with J-Lo. It's Jason Mraz showing up for a high school graduation.
There you go.
It's Al Roker hanging out.
It's that lady trying to fish the squirrel out of the pool.
Right.
It's all of it.
And if there was ever a time we needed funny pet videos, it's now.
Fishing
It's the graphics department.
That's right. That's right. Jack.
He stole the show.
Sometimes we're shopping the market, and he'll say for fun, he'll go up to somebody and go, do you recognize these?
Well, it is incredible what our production crew and the staff and everybody was, the technical crew, like the fact that they've cobbled together these home studios, and somehow this show is getting on the air every day. It's being edited in like 20 basements across the tri-state area by different people on a modem, for all I know.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts of the show is the unexpected, when Savannah's in the 8:30 and all of a sudden you hear tiny voices. I'm always like this. Come on now, come on. And then like Vale and Charlie crash in. It's like the most human part of the show, and it makes me so happy. And sometimes you're just bobbing them on your lap, and we're in a commercial, and I'm looking at the monitor. I'm like, let's not have the commercial be over. Like, I'm enjoying this moment too. And we've seen him crash your live shot too, Carson.
Oh, I can hear Goldie screaming. Just waking up in the morning. Life is happening 10 feet away, but you're like right here.
But by the way, Carson's life has changed the most in this pandemic. We've all changed somewhat, but no one has changed like
having
you.
a baby, in the state of New York during everything was pretty crazy. So I give all power to Siri. She did such an incredible job. I felt so helpless dropping her off at the hospital in Long Island. She was in her mask and gloves, and she had her go bag. Then I could only be there for the 20-minute delivery, and then they were like, get out. Wow. And they said, there's COVID patients on this floor. We need to find a safe place for your wife and baby. So that needs to happen now. So bye-bye. So I left, and then I texted them, like, did they put you in are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. And so, that was just nuts in the middle of all this to have to
Were you scared? Because you have this newborn baby, which...
I was. The two biggest things that stood out was the elevator ride down. I think I said this on the air. I heard hospital administration people talking, and they were like, do you have your mask? And he was like, I haven't gotten mine yet. So getting a first-hand look at the reality of that when the PPEs were scarce. Yeah. And then, taking a newborn baby home. I was waking up taking temperature checks on myself, hoping I didn't get this weird who knows what disease or virus, but hoping that this highly susceptible newborn child wouldn't wake up with 103 fever. So every day you're just scared. Meanwhile, she's bringing in so much joy to your life. So there's these real high highs and low lows, and then you start drinking at 2 p.m.
I was just going to ask you because Joel's job had him traveling so much.
Yes.
You traveled.
Yes.
You have this busy life. Yeah. You come into the studio, but then you race back outside the city to be with the kids. What's it been like to have everyone under one roof?
Well, for Joel, it's been great because he didn't see the kids much. Sometimes he missed them in the morning, and sometimes he'd get home and they were already sleeping. So he gets to have lunch with them. Sometimes if I get home before he's reading them a story. And I have to tell you, all this additional time has been such a joy for me. Like watching Hope and Haley toddle around, and now they make each other laugh. I always scribble in my journal, and it's getting repetitive. God, thanks for not letting me miss this. Yeah. Thanks for not letting me miss this, because this is one of those things that's easily missed in life. And I don't think we've ever paused like this. I know we're working, but it's different. And I feel like my life's been on pause, and I'm like seeing things more clearly, I think.
And I feel like our kids need us right now. I definitely felt like our kids are so little. Yeah. Well, most of ours, Al's kids are grown up. Yeah. I don't know. I do think they sense something, whether they know what it is or not. Yes. There were times when Vale would just follow me around, literally holding on to my dress. So much so that I had tripped over her a couple of times. And, I love that, but also kind of broke my heart. I remember her having a breakdown one day and saying, Mommy, I just miss school. I miss my friends. I miss kindergarten. And that just, it hurts you.
There was the one image that I remember that you posted, and it was of Charlie in this big field with one of those things that you blow and make a wish. And it was him wishing, basically, that this whole nightmare would go away.
Well, I didn't post the video, but that's exactly what he wished. We say our prayers every night, and every night they say, please, God, make the coronavirus go away. And he wished on the dandelion and said, make the coronavirus go away. Everybody wishes for life to return as it was, but better than it was. I think that's what this is all about, better than it was.
It will. It's funny because I'm the only one. 2 girls are out and Nick's at home, but in a way I was glad that this happened because when all this George Floyd stuff and the unrest happened, I think had we been in the city, it would have been very difficult. His anxiety level was up anyway. And so we were able to hold him close, and he felt safe. But on the positive side, you know, he's enjoyed hanging out, and we've been doing this cooking show together at night.
That's been great.
And he loves doing that. I mean, it's to the point where there are days I really am not. I'm thinking maybe we should order in. He said, Dad, what are we making tonight? What time are we starting? It's like, yeah, hey, great. Yeah, okay. Go get the tripod stick.
To have that extra time for you guys, for you and Deborah to be able to just like surround him with love and be together in your happy place.
He got his report card yesterday, which was very good. He said, Dad, enjoy this. I'm only here 2 more years.
Wow.
All right. I think I'm more grateful.
Yeah.
You know, grateful for my family, grateful for my friends, grateful to the people who didn't have the luxury of staying home and, you know, sheltering in place and went out every day and literally risked their lives that we don't think about on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, we all talk about the economy stopping. Didn't for these people, the bus drivers, the garbage people, the delivery people, the people who worked in the grocery stores, the healthcare workers. Didn't stop for them. So.
Our definition of essential sure has changed.
Yeah.
I am definitely more patient than I was before all of this started, and I've always struggled with that.
I think you're a kinder person.
My wife has said that. I don't know if it's that I'm kinder, but I wear my emotions more on my sleeve than I did a few months ago. And I think all of this has softened me in a way that I did not fully appreciate until we were a few months into it, and I would find myself just becoming overcome at times because you cover things, and you know, I think we probably all do a pretty good job of compartmentalizing. You cover it, you come home, you go off to the next assignment, you cover it, and it's just what we do. That's the job. And then all of a sudden, this was different.
Yeah.
This was different. How about you?
I feel like I made a lot of, you know, life decisions later in my life, and sometimes you don't know what kind of decisions you're making, but I think it did solidify, things I think I already knew, which was like, I chose the right guy. For whatever time that I have left on this earth, hopefully it's a long time, I get to spend it with him and my kids, our kids. And I remember just some days I get overcome at home. I'm like, wow, I get them. Like they're mine. Like I get to have something. Like I don't think I've ever had anything. So I think there's something about that. How about you, SG?
I really connect with what Craig said. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel more tender and a little more raw and maybe more vulnerable, which I don't really like to say because it's hard in this business to be vulnerable. That's the one thing you're really not supposed to be. But I do feel that way. I feel there are a lot of news stories you cover. You know, I always came from covering the White House. You cover politics. You cover things, and they're at a distance. There's nothing about what we've experienced that has been at a distance, ironically. The virus affects everyone. And the reckoning and the realization is that injustice affects everyone. It's everyone's problem. And so, yes, my heart has been softened, and that is simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I feel really grateful, like to Al's point, and humble in this whole time, more humbled than ever, closer to my faith. I watched Catholic Mass every day at 9 o'clock for most of it, so I felt like I got reconnected with the things and the pillars that are important in my life. My family is everything to me. I selfishly sort of loved being with them, but it came at such a cost of so many lives lost for COVID-19 and so many people displaced. And that was never lost on me, and I'm glad that it wasn't. And now having conversations with my kids about George Floyd, about civil unrest, about protesting, about looting, about Black Lives Matter, having to explain all this to 5, 7, and 11, and darn it, they deserve to know the truth, and I was proud to be able to set them straight, to be a part of the new future of the way that the world should be. So it was just a lot, right? There's a lot in a few months as a parent being at home, trying to remain to be a professional and get your job done. But in all of that, I just feel very grateful to have this job and to have great friends like you and an incredible family and a great faith.
You've got
Awesome.
you've got 6 great jobs.
Yeah, exactly. what's been interesting is during this whole stay-at-home and quarantine, people really being very nostalgic. We saw that in the Spotify numbers I reported on the show.
Yeah.
People listen to 80s music.
Yeah.
People are going back in time and holding on to things.
Yes.
And I was thinking about, being on this show for 6 years now, some of the things that kind of came to the forefront of my mind, and as it pertains to everything that's going on. I thought about Kevin Love, the basketball player, and the conversation that he helped me start with mental health. I love that I had a chance to sit down and talk to him and tell him, thank you for writing in the Players Tribune about this panic attack that you had in an NBA game. I've had them on an MTV set we shared. Then that sparked conversations, and I'm just proud of that, that you can take ownership of this thing and this stereotype, and it's not going to be there if you can just talk about it.
And one of the things that wasn't lost on me from what you said, I feel the lows, but I feel highs that other people don't experience. And I've thought about that a lot, because now when I listen to people who go through that, you realize now they're at rock bottom, but they get to see rainbows, they get to feel things that other people can't experience.
These are all things that we deal with, but once you kind of understand, you talk about it, you educate yourself, you learn, you realize that this is how God made me. I'm hardwired this way, and the other side of that is play some Mozart right now, and you'll see chills up and down my body. And it's a wonderful thing, so embrace it. Those are conversations that I go back to that I'm like, man, I'm glad that we could spearhead that on the show.
Speaking of chills, Savannah, you did the Faith series you did touched. First of all, it touched so many people. I don't know that we've ever had that kind of an outpouring after something.
I was so jealous you took that trip.
You know what? I mean, this show has made all my dreams come true. And one of my dreams was to go to Israel. You guys know my faith is so important to me, and I always wanted to go. And to get to go and to be a listener and to be guided by, Father Luke, who I still email with, and to travel in the footsteps of Jesus and to find that inspiration. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever done.
How about you? Is there one that stands out? I mean, your portfolio is so massive.
Well, thank you.
I like all your legends. Like those, I feel like I always learn something about people I've known.
No, the
for a long
extreme
time.
stuff's cool. Like when he's up in, where'd you go? Antarctica or something?
I like it when he does the climate stuff, because he's like,
the climate
stuff.
I like the Roker thoughts. I like it when we test your endurance.
There's too many.
There's too many. When you're a legend yourself.
And the barbecue stuff.
The thing, I think but thank you. One of the things I've learned during this is to say thank you and to take it in and to appreciate what people say to you. So thank you. But, I got to go to Africa.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
To see people who looked like my father was profound. To sit under a tree that's 900 years old.
Oh, that tree was amazing.
Was one of the things I'll never forget and will always be grateful to this show for.
And Craig, you've covered a million things, but I do feel like I kind of agree with Savannah. In this moment, it's been different for you. You've kind of taken a big, giant step.
This has been, it's been life-altering these last 2 months for me, because it's forced me to come to grips with some things that I had not heretofore considered, I suppose. I mean, my mother grew up in the Deep South. She was the first in this high school to integrate in the 60s. Like, we talk about racism. In a lot of cases, we talk about soft racism. She experienced hard racism. Grew up in the projects. And she would tell us these stories occasionally growing up. But she also went out of her way, really went out of her way in hindsight, to make sure that we did not view the world through the same lens. And named me Craig, named my brother Ryan. Like, she wanted us to assimilate. Didn't want us to see race. And she and we've talked about it since. She may have done, her words, not mine, she may have done a bit of a disservice. And we thought, my brother and I, for a long time, especially after the election of a black president, we're like, oh, this country of ours, this society, it's post-racial. And then all of a sudden, things happen. And you realize, oh, no, we're not. We're far from it. And maybe I can't rear my children to be totally colorblind. Maybe that's not. So it's forced a personal reckoning. But the story that over the past year or so, we went out to California, and there were these kids who were going off to summer camp just for the week, but the summer camp happened to be at a maximum security prison because that's where their fathers were being held. And these are men who had, many of these men had done unspeakable things. But some of these dads are just, my age, and they've been in prison for 15 or 20 years, and the men that they are now are certainly not the men that they were when they committed these crimes. But they're going to be in this place for the foreseeable future.
That's really good.
That's the dad. I said, what would you say to people who are watching this? And they would say, this guy, he's robbed banks, and he's done all it. He doesn't deserve to have a week with his kid on the taxpayer's dime and without missing a beat. He said, they're probably right. But my daughter, she deserves a week. My son, why should they have to pay for the sins of their fathers? That's a story that's probably touched me more than most. How about you? I feel like
nobody knows.
Hoda, how do you even there's so many. Every time you cover a story, you kiss it with gold.
I feel like the thing that I like to do is I just get to be a witness. That's it. Whatever someone's great moment is, I feel like I get to peek in. And that seems to be my common thread. I don't know that there's something that stands out, but I think being present when somebody gets married, when somebody graduates, when somebody gets a great surprise. I love that. I feel like no matter what stories I cover, and I enjoyed covering them all, but there's something about being with someone during the most perfect moment, and I like that.
No, but you handled the other stuff well too, the church shooting. When you sat down with those survivors, and their forgiveness. Remember that interview? I remember every second of that interview, and
they were amazing.
You were incredible in it.
But I think I feel like we're in awe when you watch what people are capable of, that kind of forgiveness, seeing God in the room.
I have no doubt that he was in that room with us.
With all that loss, you still know he was in the room with you.
I know God was in that room, yeah.
And I remember thinking that is faith beyond. But I think, I feel like people hand us their stories with kid gloves, and we're just don't you feel sometimes you're am I holding this okay? Does this feel all right for you?
If you always do interviews there's no written questions, I've always loved that about you. I'm always I'm going to ask this, maybe here, I'm going to listen, and you just sit there and that star wattage smile, and you're compassionate when you need to be, you're enthusiastic when you need to be, you talk when you have to, you listen when you have to, and in that conversation, you just listened and you just talked, and you make it look so easy. It's in all of your interviews.
Thank you, Carson. Thank you.
She makes it look easy and
not even
effortless.
Interviews, they're just these conversations that will change your life.
She makes everything look effortless. But if you know her, you know how smart she is and how much work she puts into it and how much preparation. That is the truth. Sorry.
Sorry,
we're on to you.
If you don't believe
that,
it's true.
Thank you.
Just say thank you because it's true.
And if you don't believe it, you look over at some of her notes on the set, and you're like, oh my God.
Well, it looks
They're
crazy.
volumes.
It looks crazy.
They're volumes.
It's been good to catch up like this.
Really has been.
Cheers, you guys. This is so normal.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 1, 2, 3. Cheers.